Hi everyone, welcome to the very first episode of Cooking on Wheels. I'm your host, Gabby, and today we're going to be making Ratatouille. Let's get started. So once you have it peeled, you're going to want to cut it in half. Like this. And then when you slice it, this is a pretty common trick, but in order to keep your eyes from not tearing, basically, you're gonna wanna cut along this little root, like this little space here. So you're not gonna cut this edge, because this edge is where it causes you to tear up. So next we're gonna move on to the zucchinis. So what you wanna do, you could either leave the skin on if you want, or peel it off. I'm probably gonna just peel a little bit off, but you could really do either. And then you just wanna kind of dice them into like cubes. So the knives that I'm actually using for this recipe are my favorite ones because they are really, really sharp. So they cut through pretty much anything really easily, but they're also very lightweight, which helps me because I have a low muscle tone condition. So for the eggplant, you're just gonna cut the top and the end off. So kind of the same as the yellow squash. I'm gonna slice it through this way just one more time because the pieces are too thick if not. So the last thing that we have to chop for the recipe is the bell pepper. So a little trick that I've learned with it, it doesn't always work, but we're gonna see if it does, is you slice around this like core part in the middle where the stem is, so that you try and avoid as best as possible all the seeds. So I'm just going around, and I used a smaller knife for this just because it's easier to get kind of like the shape of it. So when it's like that, it pops right out. So a little fun fact about me, I actually never knew that I loved to cook. I discovered that passion about 2 years ago. During COVID, I was kind of just cooking just to pass the time and keep myself busy because everyone was at home and quarantined and all that stuff. So I would cook just for fun. And I also would take classes with, there's this event in New York City where I'm from called the New York City Wine and Food Festival. And normally it's an annual event. They actually just had their 15th annual event, and I actually got to attend. So they have, because of COVID, they had all these virtual cooking classes where you got to cook with famous chefs like from Food Network and just generally in like the culinary community. So with that though, I got to cook with chefs like Rachel Ray and things like that. I got to cook with her. I got to cook with Alex Garnishelli, Daniel Blood, Valerie Bertinelli, all different chefs. And from doing all those classes, that's really what gave me my love of cooking. And so I kind of just started from there. So now that we have all of our vegetables chopped up, which are right here, and we have the tomatoes all ready, the next step is we're gonna start sauteing everything together. So I'm gonna move my pan over to the heat, and you could probably use like around medium to high heat for this. So you're gonna wanna add about 3 tablespoons of oil into your pan. So we're gonna add all the onions first so they could saute and soften up. You wanna make sure to keep the onions mixed, like don't let them sit because they will burn. So you wanna keep mixing them until they get almost like a little bit of a translucent look to them. That's how you know that your onions are done. So now I'm gonna add some garlic. And again, another trick that I like to use with garlic, I can't use like a garlic press to mince it. So either I will sometimes use a microplane to just grate the garlic directly onto it, or what I like to use is this. It's just, it's freshly minced garlic, but kind of in like a little tube. So I put about 2 to 3 cloves in there. The next step is to add all your other ingredients. So we're gonna add the canned tomatoes, and now I'm gonna add all my veggies. now that it's all combined, like I said, we're gonna add our seasoning. We're gonna do salt. Pepper. And then, so I have a little bit of fresh basil, which I'm kind of just gonna break up by hand. And then you're gonna add, so in a bowl I have about half a teaspoon or so of dried thyme and dried rosemary, and it's a half a teaspoon of each of those. So you're gonna just sprinkle those in. And then also, just for a little bit of extra flavor, I'm gonna add just a little pinch of crushed red pepper flakes. So once you have that combined really, really good like this, you're just gonna leave it on like about low to simmer to low heat, just to let everything kind of cook together. And you're gonna leave it for about 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, so our last and final step is to make the pesto, which is going to kind of be like a little bit of a drizzle on top. So we're just going to add some basil into, I use a mini food processor. You can use a blender or really whatever you have on hand, just any way to kind of like puree it. And you're also going to want to add some olive oil, and the olive oil you're going to kind of add gradually. So this is just like a little bit right now, but you're gonna add some more as you continue to blend it. So in total, I would say it's around maybe 5 to 6 tablespoons of olive oil in total. And then you're gonna add about 1/4 a cup of grated Parmesan cheese. And then you're also gonna add about 2 tablespoons of pine nuts. This is completely optional. And then you're gonna add, so this is about 2 tablespoons of garlic paste. So that's about 2 cloves or so of garlic. You're gonna add just a little pinch of salt and pepper. Nice and tight. You're gonna blend it again. So the second reason why I chose Ratatouille as the first dish of the show is because in the movie Ratatouille, the famous chef, Chef Cousteau, his famous line is "anyone can cook." And that's the exact storyline that I want for the show and just for me in general. I've had people tell me that a wheelchair user doesn't belong in the kitchen, but the reality is the wheelchair is not the problem in the kitchen, the inaccessibility is. So if you made the kitchen accessible, there'd be no issues and a wheelchair user could be in a kitchen. So with my show, it's going to be that anyone can cook. Whether you're disabled, non-disabled, doesn't matter your age, doesn't matter anything. As long as you love to cook, that's all that matters. So now that I have the ratatouille plated, I'm just going to put a couple of dollops of pesto kind of all over. And this doesn't have to be perfect. It's really just to add a little kind of extra layer of taste to the finished product. Just like that. And finally, we're just gonna add a little bit of grated cheese. And that's it. This is your finished dish. This is ratatouille. Thank you all for cooking with me, and I hope you enjoy. I hope to see you next time. Bye.